Would you like to learn how to make an amazing keto pizza?
Well, today on WTF, we're going to show you all the tips and tricks on how to make a great pizza crust at home. Hello and welcome to WTF, where we transform food here in the Modernist Pantry Test Kitchen. I'm Chef Scott Guerin.
And I'm Janie Wang, one of the owners of Modernist Pantry. Here on WTF, every week we cover unique ingredients and techniques and show you how to do these recipes in your kitchen. So remember, subscribe, and you'll get notified of our content every single week. And we do have a weekly giveaway, and you're definitely going to want to stick around to find out how to win all this cool stuff. Alright, this week we are going to be showing you how to make a delicious keto pizza. And a few weeks ago we had done a keto episode and we asked people to leave in the comments what would they like to see us tackle next, and pizza was one of the most popular choices by far. So of course we're like, alright, let's give it a go. So let's dive right into it, Scott. You know, what are the challenges you faced when you were trying to make a keto pizza?
It's tough to make the dough. So any way you're going to try to make the dough, you can't use anything that has any starch. And if you want to be really true to keto, you try to stay away from as much gluten as possible because it's a wheat product. So that gives us very few options. But since we have a little experience with keto, we took a few of the things that we already do, which is our bread and a chaffle recipe, and we kind of made like amalgam of them, and we made something that works really well for a pizza crust. It's crispy on the bottom. It has a great lift in the crust itself, and we'll show you a little technique to make like an outer crust so it has that kind of New York feel to it. So I think we really kind of just have to get into it because this is a lot of demo, but it's a really cool outcome when we get it. Yeah. So
it's a see it to believe it type of thing.
Yeah, so eggs are going to be number one. Eggs obviously have some really great structure, but they're also packed full of moisture. So we have to do other things to kind of combat that. Mozzarella cheese also gives some great structure, and it's a very common thing that's used in keto crust. A lot of keto crusts we saw were very cracker-like. Everything that we looked at was always cracker-like. It's just giving you that little bit of crisp on the bottom, but you want a little doughiness. You need a little bit of chew. You don't want it to be spongy, which we did have some tests that came out spongy, but you want to have something that has the crispiness, a little doughiness, and it holds up to that sauce, right? Because we're only putting a small amount of sauce on this, so we want that to not soak in. We want it to sit on top. So our next thing is pork rinds. Pork rinds have a great texture, so when you have that bite through, you get a little crisp and crunch on the bottom. Another thing to kind of help with that is some beef gelatin. So we have a 250 Bloom beef gelatin that we add. Makes the bottom just so uniform, so you get that nice kind of crisp texture, and it also works really well with the pork rinds there.
Yeah, and I noticed you didn't hydrate the gelatin.
No, it's going to sit in here and hydrate on its own, so we don't really have to worry about that. Everything's going to come together really easily. Baking powder, going to help with that lift. A little bit of flax meal. Flax meal will give a slight amount of texture and almost just like a stickiness, so the dough works really well together. We have our I'm Free Perfect Gluten Replacement. That is going to give us the real structure to this. The eggs will give us a certain amount, but this is going to soak up any of that extra moisture. It's going to make it extremely consistent, and we're just going to have that perfect kind of aeration throughout the whole thing. Okay. That's a crucial part.
Can you just explain to the people who haven't come across our other baking episodes, what exactly is the gluten replacement?
So this is great for anyone who has a recipe that has xanthan gum in it, but they find that it gives them just like too slick of a mouthfeel. This is a one-to-one replacement for xanthan gum, and it's going to give that texture, it's going to give that structure, and it's also going to, as you let it rise on its own, it's going to be fluid, but once you cook it, it sets, and it'll just make it perfect. Then we have some egg white powder, which is going to help our eggs, right? And we're doing everything we can to get rid of that moisture so we have a more dough-like texture. EverCrisp, which is technically from wheat, but it is, there's no gluten in it. This gives you an unbelievable long-lasting crisp, so that crust won't completely sog out. And one last thing is, with dough, you want that kind of fresh yeast flavor. So we did about a tablespoon of yeast, and what I did here is I just hydrated it in 2 tablespoons of water.
Okay.
And I let it sit for about 10 minutes, and you can see it's starting to foam up really nicely here. So we're going to get those big, nice air bubbles in there. And sometimes you even get like one of those big pockets of air bubbles, just like you do in a pizza crust.
All right, so this is not our instant yeast. This is the active dry yeast.
Yes, right.
Okay.
You can use the instant yeast. You'd pretty much go through the same process. So it really depends on what you have and what you want to use. But just want to start getting that activation going, because there isn't much proof time for this, and there's obviously no carbohydrates for the yeast to eat up. So very simple. We're just going to pulse this until it comes together, and at that point we're ready to go and to make our crust.
And what kind of texture are you looking for there?
So there's a few things I'm looking for here. Is I want to break up everything. I don't want like a big piece of pork rind or anything. But I also want to get that that I'm-free perfect gluten replacement really well mixed throughout, really well hydrated. So everything in here is nice and cold. That's going to really help promote the hydration of everything here. So you can hear a few little chunks mixing around. Once it sounds pretty even, it takes about 15 seconds in total. And then we have a great looking, and now this obviously looks more like a batter than anything.
Right.
But that is perfectly fine, because how we get it onto here is pretty simple. We're just going to scoop some out. It's going to be, this can sometimes make 2 pizzas depending on the size that you make, but we're going to go for as large of a pizza as we can today. So about 1/4 of it can come here. And I'm just going to spread this as thinly as possible. Remember, the yeast and the baking powder are going to make it lift, so you don't want to end up with like a really thick pizza. So try your best to get this, 1/4 of an inch thick in a nice circle. And don't worry about if the edge is kind of ratty, because there's a second part to this that is going to really enhance how this looks like a pizza. So let's just get this.
Okay.
In the nicest circle we can. Doesn't have to be perfect, right? It can look nice and homemade.
You're chefy, so you're already making it look like way better than I can ever make this
And
look.
that's fine. If you wanted to make it square, you absolutely could make it square. But I really want just like an even consistency throughout.
Yeah.
Right. And it's okay with these, see these little holes and pockets in here? That's fine. It'll fill right in, so don't worry about that.
Okay, so you don't have to be like
Yeah,
meticulously
exactly. I'm just making it nice and even.
All right.
And then piping bag, we're going to make the outer crust, right? We want to have that crust along the edge that we can hold on to, we can even fold, right? So all these things that we kind of miss when we're eating just like a crackery pizza. Will it break? Yes, I mean, it's keto pizza dough, but you're able to still fold this and get some really nice, just reminiscent of pizza, and the flavor is great because everything in there is nicely flavored.
Yeah, it's so savory already.
And you don't have to put any salt in this, so there's enough in the mozzarella. So this is fine. If you don't have a pastry tip, just use like a zip top bag and cut the edge off. Remember, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just has to go around the edge here.
I like that.
And this will look very, standard now, but after we give it about 10 minutes to rise, let that yeast do as much as it possibly can, then we bake it, it's going to look amazing.
All right.
Okay, so we're going to actually do that, and we'll show you all the little steps of that, and when we come back, we'll have a perfectly cooked pizza that we can eat.
Awesome. We'll be right back. All right, and we're back. As you can see, there is a delicious looking pizza that we can't wait to dig into. But first, I want to talk about this week's giveaway because I know that you are going to be excited to try this recipe. So in order to win this week's giveaway, all you have to do is leave in the comments below the next keto baking recipe that you would like to see us tackle. All right, so leave that in the comments below. Now, Scott, obviously we know we were doing some baking off camera. Can you talk a little bit about temperature and time and how, what's the process for actually cooking the pizza?
Yeah, so between 350, 375, depends on your oven. Obviously keep it at 350 if you can. You're gonna do 10 minutes on the silpat. So as you saw in the video, we put it on the silpat, we dressed it, then we took it off and we put it right on like a pizza peel if you have one. Then we took it and we put it right on the rack. So you don't want to have any moisture that could be like locked under there. So you want to have that right on the rack. It's going to be nice and sturdy. If you are uncomfortable doing that, put it on a piece of baking paper and then you can slide it right onto the peel if you want. But this will slide around nice and easy. And I can lift it up if I want to. And it's great, right? So I was able to actually lift it off of the silpat and put it directly on here.
Perfect.
So if we get right into it, you can hear a crisp of it.
It sounds very crispy.
A few pieces. So Janie, if you want to get into it, yeah.
So without even tasting it, this is holding its own. Oops, I dropped pepperoni everywhere. And you definitely, I would not be able to tell that this is not a, made with bread dough at all.
Yeah, and you can see some really great, it looks like dough. Obviously there's a little difference to it, but there's going to be. It's keto. But it's great. It feels like you're eating pizza.
It really does. The bottom is crispy. It's
oh my God, so hot.
it's like a little doughy without being, like it's not chewy by any means. So it's just got that nice combination of crisp, flavorful, really delicious. Of course, everything else that's on it as well is tasty. I'm glad I didn't bite into it the way Scott did.
I did it for you. It did just come out of the oven. Over time, obviously, this will firm up because it's very hot right now. But I can fold it. I can do everything I need to, to make it feel and look like pizza.
Yeah, and I love this little crush ring that you did here. It's
it makes a nice little handle and definitely gives it a pizza-y feel. But if you look, I can show the bottom of it. It's not falling apart, right? You get this great little just texture of pizza.
Yeah, it's totally awesome. I'm not going to burn myself on camera, so I'm going to put that down for now, but I will finish that piece. It's delicious. So I hope that you're as excited as we are about offering another great keto recipe. Let us know what else you want to see. And until next week, from the Modernist Pantry Test Kitchen, I'm Janie Wang.
And I'm Scott Guerin.